All right, so let's talk about how we can bring in existing users into Liferay. Many of you may be coming from a context where you already have a authentication system or something along those lines where you have your user data stored, and it's going to be helpful to understand how that's actually going to integrate into Liferay itself. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at how we can actually do that. Okay. All right, so many of you may not be directly responsible for this, but you may also have to manage the users or understand how the users are being managed when some of this is already integrated, okay? But obviously it's important to have whatever storage of users you may already have integrated into the platform. So there are a number of tools that we can use to automate this process, okay? And then once the process has been automated, we can take a look at how that's actually going to look in practice for those of you who may be either managing users or let's say presenting content to those who are on the platform, okay? So again here, we're gonna take a look at the context of the Livingstone Hotels and Resorts. All right, they have a company identity management system that they want to basically integrate into Liferay. It contains all the information and data for their employees, all right? And they wanna go ahead and get that plugged in. Now, one of the most commonly used services or systems for storing user data is LDAP, okay? Liferay does have the tools to integrate with LDAP servers, okay? And the seamless integration will pull in those LDAP groups and bring them into Liferay via user groups, okay? I had mentioned before that user groups are a way that we can group users outside of an organizational structure, so we can use them intentionally to do just that, but they will also be of use if we've integrated LDAP into the system and used the sort of default configuration, okay? Now, LDAP information for our users contain things like our user's name, screen name, or username, email address, login information, job title, etc. Okay, and we can get all that information and have it seamlessly integrated into Liferay. Now, of course, there are other methods for authentication as well. Now, Liferay can also be accessed via token-based SSO using the following systems that we have here. So we have things like SiteMinder, CAS. We can also integrate Facebook if you want to have some Facebook login. As many of you have probably already experienced on the internet, if you have logged in or gone to create an account for different services, one of the options is Facebook authentication. You can set that up as well. I would encourage you to look at the documentation for that if you are interested there. We also have OpenAM, OpenID, and NTLM for legacy purposes, okay? So all of these are options for those of you who know that you already have some sort of a service or authentication system set up for pre-existing users that you want to just go ahead and plug into Liferay. Now, as we're talking about users here, it's important to note the GDPR compliance that has just been enacted in the European Union. As we get more globalization with our companies, with our services, it's important to keep this in mind when you are managing your users and setting up some of that user data. Liferay has recently incorporated some strong data protection and security capabilities in the platform itself, but in general, when you are managing your users, it is going to be your responsibility to comply with the following rules here. Now, we just have a few examples. Obviously, your company will need to be responsible for determining how to fulfill the GDPR rules. But for example, what we're looking at here is lawfulness, fairness, and transparency with data, data minimization, explicit consent, okay, the right to erasure, and the right to data portability. Okay. Now at this point, it's just important, again, while you're considering bringing in users and their data, different things like that, that you do it in such a way that it makes it easy for you to comply with these particular rules. Okay. So by importing users and integrating them into Liferay, this is one step for keeping these organized. They will come in through groups. The user information is going to be in their accounts, and you should be able to manage and organize them appropriately so that you can find and manage their data appropriately. All right, so let's summarize some of the options we have for importing or managing users in Liferay. Okay, for starters, Liferay can create users manually. You can go in as a platform administrator, create those users manually. But for more efficient options, you can either import them or you can use some alternative authentication as well. Okay. Doing this will save your platform administrators time. You can use some of the built-in tools. You can also technically run scripts to auto-generate your users in the database as well. Okay, whatever works best for you. And it's important to note again here, as we're talking about users and their data, that Liferay is GDPR compliant. And you can both use some of the APIs and tools during development, but in general, when it comes to organizing your users, it's important to make sure that everything is organized appropriately so that you can manage the employee data well. All right, so in the next section, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and import some of the Livingstone users onto the platform. You can work with some of these users on your own, or you can create your own users as well, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at that in the next video.